Good morning. It is 6 o'clock on the 17th of July. I am in shifting perspectives at the moment. This is on imagination of the healing garden. And I'm not sure if I need a podcast separate for my philosophy classes or if I should just rant loose in shifting perspectives. I'll figure it out. Which actually brings me to the topic of today. What I am talking about today at this particular moment is sales and marketing. Now, this has been something that's been like my system hums. I love my system. And when something is not logical, my whole body just changes frequency. I now have the words for all of this. This is nice. Oh, this is nice, finally having words. I've been dealing with this for 43 years, and now I actually have the verbiage and the vernacular to communicate what's going on. So this is a change for me because usually I go, I don't know what's going on. There is a shift in my entire vibrational frequency every time I find something that doesn't rationally or logically make sense. My system is built so strongly on logic, philosophy, and formal argument that I vibrate on a very logical frequency. It's great. So that when something comes to me that's illogical, it immediately does not vibrate with my frequency and I can feel it. So I can detect immediately if something is logical or illogical just by the vibrational frequency. Oh yeah, it's awesome. So whenever someone tells me something, the very first thing that I experience is my vibrational frequency shaking me, going, that's not right. Or it purrs like, yes, that's right. Because the information either enforces my system or it really rattles it and it hurts me. Cognitive dissonance. So this one particular thing that I keep running into, and this is my problem, is I have this entire system based off of a particular vibrational frequency. And then I step away from it to go get a job, a 9 to 5. And then 9 to 5 is so illogical according to my system that it doesn't fit it. So when I go to get a job, even if I go on Indeed and I'm browsing even for 5 minutes, my whole system will just shake and it'll just shake. And I'll go, whoa, okay, this hurts me, which has developed into some obstacles. There's a few other things like that where it happens. If I'm in conversation with somebody and the person I'm speaking to is on a different belief system, putting it mildly, my entire system will vibrate and I can't step away from the illogic of it. I have lost many of friends because of this, where my vibrational frequency kept growing along my pathway and their stand. This is actually why relationships fall apart, is because our vibrational frequency is constantly changing and adjusting to our own tone, our own vibration. And the persons around us are also evolving and they're moving and their frequency is changing to build and structure their own reality. Eventually, your reality is either going to align or they're going to contradict. When you have the contradictions span so greatly apart, you get cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the beautiful term that we refer to, well, harmonic dissonance in the music theory world, when two frequencies contradict each other. Human beings also have frequency. This is well beyond proven in the science realm. Thank you, CERN. Compliments to CERN. That being said, and it's not just CERN, it's any physicist. Thank you. Thank you for your work. I appreciate it. This work especially came clear in the 1950s with physicists. That all being said, it's common knowledge at this point that we all have a vibrational frequency that is our own. And all of our truths and all of our stories either align to that frequency or they don't. So I've got mine, and mine is built off of logic and philosophy. Like, that's what it is. I've structured my entire vibrational frequency off of logic, formal argument, deductive reasoning, and philosophy. And then I threw mathematics, geometry, history, sociology, psychology, and my favorite, music theory, right into that. So I have this gorgeous pool of good, happy feeling. So that when I hear something like sales and marketing, my whole system screams, halts, and goes, no, no. So I start up this company, the Healing Garden. Now, let's go back to 2015. This is not my first company. My first company was Brain to Books. I launched Brain to Books. I did my thing with Brain to Books. Brain to Books was a marketing company and that's important because we're going to come back to that advertised, that taught authors how to market their books while marketing their books. So it was a hands-on learning guidance while we built this massive marketing machine. It was so much fun. It was around the third year, that I started to feel unethical about the work I did. Now, at the time, I couldn't quite explain it. I thought it was about money, and it wasn't. It was about marketing and sales. And I talked to a lot of people. I had a lot of people on staff at the time, not on staff, they were all volunteers, but they had degrees in marketing and sales. I had one person who had like a master's degree in business marketing and sales, and he was going off about how beneficial marketing and sales was. And I went, mm-mm, mm-mm. For me, marketing and sales is manipulation. So now I come back to the Healing Garden. Basically, I completely shut down the company. I was quiet quitting it, where I pulled away and I pulled away. And then my dearest friend, who also, well, my dearest friend, Ani, she also was my one of my right hand people for Brain to Books. And she passed away quite suddenly from brain cancer. And between me not feeling good and ethical about marketing and then her passing away, I pulled out of the company, shut it all down, and said no. And then I went through my own therapy and I walked away from it all. And now here I am with the Healing Garden. I'm building the Healing Garden and I'm building this business. And I have all these people. I have advisors. I have 3 women who are gemstones, who are guiding me through marketing. They're coaching me on money mindset. Like, they are grooming me into this business. Like, I love it. I love what they're doing for me. They're beautiful people. And we keep coming back to marketing. And I had this one really wonderful sit down with Amanda, and I drilled her. Now, Amanda is extraordinary. She truly is an extraordinary human being. She is a self-made millionaire who is now a celebrity, and she's been all over Forbes magazine, like the cover of Forbes. She's all over the place. And she's one of the people who is working with me and coaching me on the Healing Garden. And I love it. She's like walking me through all of these steps, and she's just phenomenal. And it's more like I journal to her now every day. And then she reads it and she like encourages me and confirms, yes, you're on the right path. And she's learned that you've got the frequency, you're on the right vibrational frequency, and you can read it and you are so tuned in. I'm just going to step back and let you do you. Because right now, anything that I give you is going to steer you from your frequency into my frequency. And the fact that she even knows all this stuff is even better. Like, this is how tuned in Amanda is. That she understands that we are all on our own frequency. And every time you speak to another person, lean in. This is important. Every time you speak to another person and you are listening to their opinion, you are taking in their frequency. Now, if you do not know how to observe with boundary, you're going to absorb the frequency, which is what happens to too many of us. This is something I just recently realized this week. Last week, I discovered this. And because every time someone gave me an opinion, I felt my vibration frequency just felt like it was under attack. And that's when you get too much noise. That's when you read too much information. That's when you read too much media and it screams at you. It's that feeling you get when you just are overloaded by too many opinions and thoughts. And instead of clarifying because you're getting advice, it's confusing you. The reason why is because every time you listen and tune in to it's literally internal listening. When you listen to somebody and you're taking in their opinion and their belief, what's really happening is you are absorbing part of their frequency. And if their frequency does not align with yours, it's going to shake you up, which is why it's very important that you have a solid identity. It's like why you need a solid identity. Now, let's go to marketing. So that all being said, Well, no, I'm not done. I have my story. I'm going to tell you my story. So I'm talking to Amanda, and she's going over all the different parts of business, and I'm loving it. But then we get to the marketing, and I just stop, and I went, no. It's like I feel like a vampire at the door of a house I'm not invited into. It's the same feeling. I get to the store, and she goes, well, come on. And I went, no, I have to be invited first. Like, it feels like that. Like, I know what that feels like, right? Because I am a vampire, and I know what it feels like. You get what I'm saying. So she and I sat down, we talked about it. And I said, look, this is not a money issue. I love money. I'm a Taurus. I love money. That's not my problem. My problem is marketing and sales. And she's like, oh, well, we all have this problem. This is the good. And she starts telling me all the benefits of marketing. Now, what she's telling me is fact sounded. And I went, yep, I hear you. She's right. She's 100% right in all of her knowledge. And I said, no. I'm like, no, I can't. And I couldn't figure out why. Now I know why. And this is where my story is coming to. I know why. It's a hunch. It's a vibrational hunch where my whole system is humming with confirmation. I know Rome so well that Rome, the history of Rome, is embedded into my logic system. So when I hear something, if it contradicts Roman behavior, Roman whatever, I can tell. If it aligns with the Roman mentality, Roman behavior, Roman history, I can tell. So I'm sitting here and I get everything together and I'm going, something isn't right, something isn't right, something isn't right. And it comes back to Narcissus. I can't get Narcissus out of my head. Narcissus, actually. So I go back to it, back to Rome, back to Greek myth. And I'm pulling up old Greek myths and Roman myths, and I'm reading again. Now, at the time, and I studied the Library of Alexandria, I went through the university. I literally went through the university. I pulled up all of the research that we had on Alexandria, the schools and the documents that they had there. I looked at what courses they offered at the University of Alexandria, and those were the ones I decided to study. That's how I figured out I should study philosophy. Psychology was not in that list. And that was curious to me. It wasn't on the list. But I then sat down and I studied philosophy. I studied philosophy. And then I studied psychology a little bit. But what I studied was philosophy. Now, philosophy has subjects like ethics and morals. The very first lesson of philosophy is who are we? Which is actually going to be an episode later today on shifting perspectives. Who are we? Episode 1 of philosophy. Join me. It's going to be fun. And it explores the identity, the self, and who we are. And then philosophy goes on to explore our relationship to the universe with that individuality. It is our self in relation to the rest of the world. We have to have this information to know who we are. It's all relative. Relativity, I need to write this down because this is going to be a course later. Relativity is the core of our, oh, my pen's dead. I'll remember it. It's really big. Relativity is the core of understanding who we are. This is why our perspectives are so vital to our education. This is why our perspectives are so vital to our mental health, is because we have to know our relation to the world around us. And we do this using our perspective, our point of view, our story. And our story, our perspective, is built off of our past events, our present events, our identity, our ethics, and our beliefs, our current beliefs, and our dreams and ideals of where we are going. When all of this information combines, it forms our story. So we know who we are in relation to the rest of the world. We must know this so we know who we are. It's like you are lost in space without it. That's it. It is exactly like you are lost in space. It is your coordinates. I needed to write that down. I need to write that down. It is our coordinates. Understanding your why is my pen dead? Like this is bad because this is good shit. I need to write that down. Coordinates. It is our coordinates. Our perspective is our coordinates in space. And if we don't have our coordinates, we don't know who we are. We don't understand what's going on. We don't know what our vibrational frequency is. Our coordinates, our perspective tells us, hey, this is your geographical location. This is who you are in relative to existentialism. You need to kind of know this shit. And when this is taken away from us through neglect, abuse, uneducation, we really need to talk about that. Then it's like a whoa. You know, it's funny. I was just thinking about this morning when I was making my coffee. I love my family. I love my father. I love my brothers. They're toxic. My brothers are. And I have to have boundaries. But I love my brothers. I love my father. I can only be around them a little bit. Now, when people hear about my backstory and they learn about my abuse, they paint this picture of my family as these horrible, horrible villains. And I stop them every time and say, no, I'm not going to let people villainize my family. My family were not evil. They were not malicious. My family was ignorant. Most of our abuse in this world is due to uneducation, not maliciousness, not evil in the world, just people being stupid. We're all stupid. We're all consciously unaware. My father is a very good man. My family are good people, simple people, but very good people. My father is a good man and a bad parent because he's just not educated, because we don't educate our people. So abuse happens. Now, in my lifestyle, in my past, the education was so severe that it was some of the worst abuse anyone has ever heard of in most cases. And when they hear my story, because it's so astronomical, they immediately conclude, oh, it must be filled with villains and evildoers and Satan. No, just ignorant. But no one wants to hear that. We are not abused. Everyone is just really ignorant. There's a difference. No one was out to get me. It was just consequential to ignorant, poor education. Just poor education. That is what abused me. Poor education. So while I go through my life, I am not going to allow anyone to attack or verbally abuse my family. My family did not maliciously harm me. Oh, they love me. They're just really ignorant. And as a result, I got hurt. As a result, I had no guidance and instruction. As a result, I was very susceptible to narcissism, psychological entrapment, and Stockholm syndrome. And that's all it takes because they were ignorant, not because they were malicious. They were very good people, very stupid people, but very good people. It's what happens when the subconscious mind is allowed to run around with people and do whatever the fuck it wants. That's the difference. So getting back to marketing, when I studied philosophy and psychology, I thought it was very unusual that psychology suddenly popped into the scene. Thank you for 1800s. But it didn't just pop out of anywhere. It popped out of philosophy. Psychology is a direct branch of philosophy. In fact, it is philosophy. Philosophy evolved into modern day psychology, which is why we kind of phased out philosophy. But philosophy did a lot more than just vomit psychology at us. It taught us how to think. It taught us how to have a formal argument. It taught us how to question. Now, for some reason, these parts of philosophy were determined to be insignificant and undervalued, so they were thrown away. Formal argument and logic was pulled for attorneys. That is the information that attorneys are taught when they go to law school, how to formal argument and debate. And it was also pulled into mathematics and geometry with proofs, algebra, equations, proofs. Geometry is very closely linked to philosophy. But the core of philosophy, the gut of it, was completely stripped, thrown away. It's like we cherry-picked philosophy, turned it into psychology, borrowed a couple more concepts, and then just threw the rest of it away. And I spent my life sorting through the bin, pulling out all the rubbish, and realizing, no, this is very much really, really important information. It defines the self. Philosophy asks the question, animal, man, God. Let's analyze them. Animal, man, God. Now, there's a lot of people out there with religions who say, oh, we don't ask those questions. That means you're not faithful. No, it means I'm educated. It means I'm seeking a higher education. No God would ever deny. No God would ever deny being pulled apart and questioned, because the confidence is so strong that they can resist it without a problem. A proper God would want you to ask the questions, pull them apart, and learn from them. It is faithless who do doubt their own faith, who say, do not ask questions. The faithless, the ones who are hiding their lack of faith, are the ones who tell you not to ask questions. Once I realized that, philosophy became a free-for-all for me. Now I'm ready to talk about marketing. The thing is about Rome is they didn't really do anything until money was involved. That's the funny thing about Rome. They were very money and profit driven, as are most societies, as are all empires that want to rule and imperialize. England. So that being said, they didn't study psychology because they wanted to help people get better mentally. They studied psychology first because they wanted the answers to the universe. And at the time, they lacked a religion. It's about as close to science as they could get. But what they really wanted was to learn how to manipulate the human mind to get them to buy shit. True story. True story. They wanted to learn how to manipulate human behavior to get them to buy shit. Enter marketing and sales. Rhetoric, propaganda, subliminal messaging. These are all the core of human psychology and behavior, and understanding how the consumer behaves so you can pull certain strings and get them to respond. Now, my ethics. This is where I have a problem. If you approach a person with conscious awareness and you tell them very honestly, I'm going to pull certain strings in your subconscious mind to manipulate you and get you to respond to ABC a certain way, so you will do X, Y, Z. I call that puppeting people without their consent. Now I have a problem. Me, who was raised in a world without consent, me who took 40 years before I learned that I had a right to my body and I could tell other people to not touch it. I'm very sensitive to consent. When I started studying Reiki healing, the very first law of Reiki healing is you do not touch another person's energy without their consent. I am now at a point in my life where I dump so much energy. The people who have met me can attest for this. I think you guys can too. I think you could feel this in the video. I don't know. I really would love to see it. But whatever you pick up in the videos, it's muted. It's muted. Like I dump energy. And I have made men cry. I have hugged people and they've just gone, whoa, like my energy is just, it dumps. I've got to a point where I do not hug people without asking their consent. Not just is it okay if you hug? That's standard. It's the next level up. When I hug people, it's, can I give you a hug? I need to warn you, I push a lot of energy. Do I have permission to touch your energy? I have to get consent before I touch people. And then they feel it. They're like, oh my God, like it's a full energy cleanse whenever I hug somebody. And then I had at one point a friend who was walking with me, and every time I hugged somebody after, they were like, what is that? And she'd have to explain, she just has a lot of energy. It's like, whoosh, like I'm a walking battery. And it's crazy. So that being said, that is one level of you have to ask for consent. The flip side of that is the subliminal messaging. It's the marketing. So when I got to Amanda and I was talking to her about my marketing issues, and she was like, oh, well, and she gave me all the science behind it, all the logic. And I'm like, yes, I agree. It's all accurate, but is it ethical? And she's like, you're not wanting to cause them harm. And I'm like, no, I'm not wanting to cause them harm. Of course not. But it's not about harm. It is about consent. And because I understand conscious awareness and I understand conscious awareness, I remember to this day, but being a kid, I would go somewhere and every time I saw an advertisement, it would hit me and it would just hurt. Now I understand it. Every time I see advertisements, I saw, so fun story. I boycotted commercials. I think the last time I watched a commercial was in 1995. 1995 was the last time I watched a commercial. Really, the last time I watched a commercial, are you ready for this? Ritz crackers. There was a little girl and an old man, and she was saying, Ritz crackers go good with cheese. Big Ritz crackers go, and the man said, with broccoli, with asparagus. That's the last time I watched a commercial. I'm trying to figure out, oh, wait. Kmart's Ship Your Pants. That's the last time I watched commercials. And somebody purposely gave me that one to watch. That's how long it's been since I've watched commercials. I don't watch commercials. I boycott them because I have a problem with commercialization. I have an ethical problem with marketing and advertising, a big problem with it. I would go to the store and I would be bombarded with marketing, and then I would go down the road and I would be bombarded with marketing. I've learned how to block it now, but it's still very much a presence because there is energy, there is a frequency within every one of those advertisements and commercials. And every time I'm around them, they invade and they violated my frequency. So it hurt. And now I understand why. It's because I'm so sensitive to anything that's trying to manipulate me, anytime that's trying to alter my frequency, that when I feel it, I go, whoa, something violating my system. And I can feel it. And it's like I am so isolated. And that's just it. I am so isolated that I feel the slightest flux in my frequency. So here I am now building this company, and I'm not doing it with any marketing. I am doing some marketing, but it's like, if I don't make this honest, if I don't make this. So I sat down and I went over rhetoric and subliminal messaging with my daughter yesterday. She was asking questions and I started laying it all down, and she was like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, this is like psychologically toxic. I have a problem with it. This is Rome all over the place. This is basic commerce. But that's where psychology got its start, was, well, we need to manipulate people into buying our product. How can we do that? And the very first thing they found was narcissism. Like, it's extraordinary. They literally learned how to manipulate the mind and the psychology of human behavior. It's extraordinary. It's why used car salesmen have such a dirty, slimy rap, is because they have mastered the art of getting into your subconscious mind and pulling the right strings. So I'm huge on word of mouth. I am huge on word of mouth. I am huge on a person vouching. And that's it, really. I believe that is the full strength of my ethics when it comes to building a company, is somebody has to vouch for you. And when that person vouches for you, then they can pass it on to the next. And then they can pass it on to the next. Every time I find a truth, truth is such a wonderful word. It's every time I find something that aligns even closer to my frequency, that defines more and more where my coordinates are in this world, I can go, I know who I am. I know where I am. I have my coordinates. I am going to be doing a philosophical class on perspective and your coordinates, finding your coordinates. Finding your coordinates. That's what it needs to be called. I like that a lot. That feels good to me. Finding your coordinates. Because that's really what we're doing here. And when you find the right words, when you find the right communication that brings all of this together, it just clicks. Communication and comprehension. The further out we can see the big picture, it's getting you the big picture, but then communicating that big picture to you. And it's like I'm on this mission of, I'm going to narrow this down. And I'm going to find the largest, biggest, broadest picture I can. And then I'm going to use my amazing skills of communication. And I am going to condense it down into like an elevator pitch for you. I promise. I'm going to do this. I'm willing it right now into the manifestation of the world. And that's just it, is for me, this is just trying to figure out what our coordinates are. And along the way, people are getting hurt and scared. So they're hurting other people. And their subconscious minds are all going rogue. So we have a conglomerate of just uneducated apes hurting each other. And it's like, what are you doing? I feel like I'm in 2001 Space Odyssey and I found the monolith. That's what I feel like. I feel like I am in 2001 Space Odyssey and I found the monolith. And right after that, everything changed. You know, we talk a lot about the evolution of man and the Neanderthals, and we're trying to figure out, and I'm going, oh, that's simple. They were once the same species, but some of them evolved, but not everybody. Not everyone gets to evolve. If you don't step up your intellectual game, you get left behind. That's what we're doing when we heal. We're stepping up our intellectual game. And that intellectual gap is getting bigger and bigger. So that the ones who don't evolve intellectually, the ones who are too stupid, they don't get to come with us. It's no different than Homo sapiens sapien, that's us, and the Neanderthal. You could still breed with a Neanderthal. You could still have sex with it, but the evolution did grow. You know, there was this one documentary I saw. It is on iodine. Iodine is that stuff they put in salt. You know what I'm talking about? When you go to the grocery store and you see salt, and there's iodized salt. Iodized salt. Iodine is an element that is purposely put inside salt to guarantee human beings get it. We have to have iodine, not to live, to become intelligent. Iodine is found in mussels and clams. Only. They were able to find that in early man, humans would sit around the banks of the rivers and the waters, and we would accumulate these mussels, and we would eat the mussels, and then we would toss them behind us. And they found archaeological evidence of thousands of years of these clam shells emptied from prehistoric man, where we had pulled them out and eaten them. The iodine inside the mussel and the clams increased our intelligence, widened our intelligence gap, and started to separate us from the species. There were those who weren't eating the clams and those who were, which is why humans who live near water survived and went on to evolve. Not because of the water, because of the iodine located within these clams, which is why it's mandated that most salt has iodine put into it to increase your frontal cortex. There is a species of monkey that figured this out now, today. And they also are eating these clams, and they have been for a while. And they reported that the monkeys who are eating these clams are smarter. They're smarter. They're starting to evolve. Iodine is required for upper brain function. It's the difference between Neanderthal and human. We, for some reason, are now in a society that does not value education. It declined about 20 years ago, 40 years ago. The value of education tanked. And then we stopped funding educational programs. And then we started cutting back educational programs. And then we started cutting psychological programs and art programs, and then more psychological programs, because the education system had declined significantly, that we lost the value of education. I've seen this once before. This is what happened around the 1400s with the Dark Ages. It's not that no one recorded anything. It's that no one valued education. And it's like this tug of war where we all argue over if education is important or isn't it. The thing is, education is so fucking important. And there's always the argument of, well, what should we study? The thing is, the more a person studies, the less cooperative, the less obedient they are, the more they think on their own. And when you think on your own, you aren't willing to sustain a system. And that's bad for the system. Food for thought. All right, I have released all of that theory and thought in my head. I can now be at peace and go back to contemplating in silence. That's my cycle. I get thoughts that just build up in my head until I release them. I have to verbally release them. And then once they're released, my brain calms down and I can enjoy life again. But then the thoughts build up and they build up, and then I can't, and I've got to say them again. This is a cycle I have been conducting my entire life since I was about 12. I don't know why, but this is my system. That every time I build up, it's why I podcast, is because I have to have an outlet. I have to siphon my thoughts or I go crazy. This is part of my mental health. I have to siphon my thoughts. So this is me siphoning my thoughts. Now, I'm going to get a pen that works, and I'm going to go contemplate coordinates of the universe. Thank you. And as always, subscribe to my channel. Join me later for my philosophical course, and take a look at my Facebook page. Subscribe there. Subscribe to my newsletter. And I just updated my marketing site, my shops and my market. Take a look at that. It is anashealinggarden.org. I have courses for disciplining your subconscious mind. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.